Hi everyone, so we've got to the last day of our writing task and can I just say I've really enjoyed sharing different ideas with you over your Teams meetings. That's been really lovely, so thank you for participating in that. Okay, I'm going to go through the slides in order. I'm just going to pause on this one and just show you what we're going to be working on today on our last day. So all of these things we've done already, so we've written 5 sentences, we've made sure hopefully that they have capital letters and full stops or maybe other punctuation. We've worked really hard on expanded noun phrases and I would hope that our writing still makes sense. But today we're going to do sentences starting in different ways. That's the only thing we haven't tackled yet, so that's what we're going to work on, and then we'll come back to this marking ladder later, and you'll find that there is one at the end of the planning sheet that I've submitted for today. Okay, so let's just skip through until we find where we had got to. Okay, here we are. So you'll remember that we started with our short sentences on Wednesday. Yesterday we spent time extending those sentences, adding further detail, and I didn't change the beginnings of the sentences really at all. I was just adding bits on, and those of you that I worked with in Teams meetings yesterday, we had a practice of doing some of those together, so hopefully you found that okay, taking that full stop away and then adding a little bit more. And you can see that my writing, my sentences look longer now, they're more developed. So what I did is I cut this out and I pasted it onto the next page, and I want you to see how I've done today's activity. So what I've done is I've got these sentences here. These are the ones I finished with yesterday, you'll remember. And what I've done is I noticed that if you have a look here, I'm just going to underline them. I started in similar ways. The, there, the, and the. Not particularly interesting because I've started this in a similar way, and that can make my reading sound a little bit boring. So I want to change the way I'm starting my sentences. And if I was in the classroom with you, what we would be doing is writing your sentences out on a long strip of paper. We would be cutting your sentences up, and we would be changing the order of your sentences by putting parts of the sentences at the beginning that perhaps were at the end, and changing the order and checking and reading through to make sure it made sense. That's what I would do with you in the classroom. So if you are finding this task really difficult, you could try and do that. You could write or ask an adult to help you to write that out, your sentence out on a long strip of paper, and then chop the sentence up so that you can then move the pieces around like a jigsaw puzzle, really. Move the pieces into a different order to see if they still make sense, and that will give you different starters to your sentences. So if we look at sentence number 1 here. Now what I did, you'll see, if I read them both out to you, you'll hopefully be able to see the difference. So the stomping stone giants are walking forwards, destroying everything in their path. This is what I've changed it to. Destroying everything in their path, the stomping stone giants are walking forwards. Can you see what I've done? What I did was I took this part of my sentence and I put it at the beginning. That's it. That's all I did to change that sentence. So I had to then remember that I needed a capital letter for destroying because I hadn't had one there before. And I then read through to make sure it made sense again. Destroying everything in their path, the stomping stone giants are walking forwards. Yes, I like that. I haven't started with the, I've started with destroying, and it still makes sense. Let's look at sentence number 2. There are mysterious floating ships in the sky that are looming closer and closer. So I thought maybe this time I'm going to try cutting bits out. So this is what I did. Let me get my pen again. So In fact, I'll use my highlighter, sorry. So I cut out that, there are, took it out completely and started with mysterious. Mysterious floating ships in the sky that are looming closer and closer. I'm not sure that makes sense, so I changed it. There are mysterious floating ships. I took out in the sky that are. I didn't think I needed in the sky because if they're floating ships, they're probably in the sky anyway. Mysterious floating ships looming closer and closer. I don't need ing. So here we go. Mysterious floating ships loom closer and closer. So actually, with that sentence, I didn't have to write anything new. I was actually taking pieces away completely and making the sentence shorter. But I like it because I've managed to start with the word mysterious, which I think sounds really interesting. Okay, let's see what I did with the third sentence. So it started with, the brave, fearless knight is watching them, clutching his spear tightly. So I did a similar thing to the first one. I took this bit, clutching his spear tightly, and decided to start with that. Clutching his spear tightly, the brave, fearless knight watches them. So if you look, I changed is watching them to watches them. That's it. Okay, so clutching his spear tightly, the brave, fearless knight watches them. And the only way I decided on that sentence really was to kind of read it through and decide whether it made sense to me. Okay. But again, with that one, I've actually made it shorter. Okay, the ground is shaking, I'm here now, because of the giant's shuddering footsteps. Okay, so all I did here was I changed it slightly and made it a bit shorter. Rather than talking about the ground first, I decided to talk about the giants. I still used the giant's shuddering footsteps because I liked that phrase. So I put that first. The giant's shuddering footsteps. So this is what I mean about cutting out your sentence and moving it around. And then I thought, the giant's shuddering footsteps, the ground is shaking. Well, that doesn't make sense if I just add that on the end, so I need to change it. The giant's shuddering footsteps, what do? Oh, they're shaking the ground. Shake the ground. Can you see? The giant's shuddering footsteps shake the ground. So that's how I changed that sentence. So far I've got all my sentences starting in different ways. That's great. This one, the birds are flying away from the giants in terror. I started with in terror. There we go. And then in terror, the birds are flying away from the giants. That would have been fine, absolutely fine, but I decided to make it a bit shorter. So I took out the word the, and I took out the word are, and I put in terror, birds fly out of their path. Now this bit's interesting. I didn't want to say the giants again because I'd already had the giants here. So I knew that my reader would know what I was talking about. They were talking about the giants. Sometimes we change very simple things to make our writing sound better. So if I'd put the giants in here, listen to how it sounds. The giants' shuddering footsteps shake the ground. In terror, birds fly out of the path of the giants. Do you see? I don't need to say giants again. So I've made it simpler. In terror, birds fly out of their path. And there are my 5 finished sentences. And I'm pretty happy with those. So if at some point you want to pause it here, that would be, you could do that. Okay, let me show you the last bit finally. I've got my sentences here, and how I'm going to do my marking ladder, and this is what I want you to do. You've got to check here. So have I written 5 sentences? Yes, I have. My sentences have capital letters and full stops? Yes. I've used expanded noun phrases. Yep, stomping stone giants, mysterious floating ships. Yep, happy that I've done that. Do they start in different ways? Well, I know from today's lesson that they did. And I've checked that my writing makes sense. So that's what you need to do to complete your activity. Good luck, guys.